Unfortunately, the first area we have to start with would be Liverpool's defeat against Chelsea on Sunday. It wasn't perhaps Liverpool's best game. They did make a lot of changes. There was no Ryan Gravenberch in the squad. McAllister and Szoboszlai were on the bench, and Liverpool eventually lost 3-1. And I would argue that there probably was an element of luck with certainly both of Chelsea's opening goals, but I can't really say that Liverpool created much. So considering the changes, was that just a predictable result?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think we were expecting Liverpool at 100%, were we? And I mean, the manager sends the message to the players effectively, doesn't he, with the selection? That's, not just leaving Ryan Gravenberch at home, but 6 changes in total to the starting 11, giving a lot of fringe players an opportunity. So clearly for him, it wasn't the absolute priority for Liverpool to win this game. And when you go in with that mentality and you're coming off the back of a big celebration after the weekend, it's not a shock that Liverpool weren't at the best, particularly as they were up against an opponent who, this mattered a lot. They needed to win this game. They've got to give themselves a chance of getting Champions League football, and still really tough ask because they've got some difficult fixtures left. So, every point they can get on the board matters. So to get 3 points for them was absolutely massive. So, when you've got that kind of mismatch in motivation and I'd say so many changes for Liverpool, it's not a massive shock that you got a performance that was slightly disjointed. I still think it was kind of a little bit closer than it ended up looking in the scoreline and the numbers. Actually, they pile on a little bit of quite a lot of expected goals towards the end, and Liverpool dominate possession, dominate the ball, and they don't create loads of chances, but they're in so many areas to create chances quite a lot. I thought they were really good in build-up and getting into areas, but just didn't make it count. So it was, not a terrible performance from Liverpool, but of course, if you give goals away in the way that they did, then it's always going to cost you. And the upside is that ultimately it's a little bit of a shrug of the shoulders for Liverpool, and let's move on because these remaining games don't matter at all, do they?
No, not really, because when you've won the title, then it doesn't really matter about team selection. But on the topic of team selection and perhaps team performance, is this what we can expect moving forward in the final 3 games of the season, to maybe see Wataru Endo play more, to see Harvey Elliott play more? And if so, could this be? It won't derail the season because, as we've said, Liverpool are Premier League champions, but you don't really want to end on a low point of maybe losing a couple games and losing a couple more than you have to.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we'll see mass rotation again over the remainder of the season. There's just not huge motivation to do that. We'll probably see that he's slightly more kind of ready to maybe bring an Endo on with 30 minutes remaining rather than 10, and same for Harvey Elliott or whatever. But it kind of just made sense for this game to give them a go and give the fringe players a reward for the work that they've put in, and particularly off the back of, I'm sure there's still a few hangovers that are in that Liverpool squad after the weekend before. So it kind of made sense in this one. But, I don't expect when the next game comes around that you will see Ryan Gravenberch left out of the squad. I'm sure he will be straight back in the starting 11. Same with Szoboszlai, McAllister, or, Andy Robertson at left back, maybe. Ibo Canate was left out, wasn't he? So I'm sure we will see them over the remainder of the season. And again, you probably won't see the best, most motivated version of Liverpool, but I think it makes sense to kind of, there's no real reason not to go with his strongest 11. I think what we will see, though, is, if it's the kind of final 30 minutes of a game, there's no point, running Szoboszlai into the ground when you don't need to. You can make that change for Elliott, and he will be keen to do that regardless of whether it's 1-1 or Liverpool are 1-0 down or whatever, because it doesn't matter. But in terms of selection, I think he'll go back to strong for the remaining games, or largely strong anyway.